So I bet you don't recognize me without a timeline behind me, right? I'm still the same person. But you're the people that my pastor warned me about in 2011. I'd been hanging out with gay people, noticeably hanging out with gay people for about a decade by then, and in a fairly conservative evangelical church, and it was being noticed. And so my pastor took me out to lunch to Marie Callender's. At least it wasn't, can we go out for coffee? He took me out to lunch, and he paid, and he finally got to the point in the parking lot when I told him, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to start a nonprofit. And he said to me, be careful, Kathy. You're a good person. Agreed. But watch out for these people. That's you. They're going to manipulate you, and they're going to draw you in, and you're going to change your ideas of Scripture, and they're going to change you. And now, he was right. But that's not quite what he was thinking about. They were very concerned about me. So I don't typically talk about me. If someone gives me 35 minutes, I'll take an hour, and then I'll teach. So this is a different setting for me. But a lot of people don't know kind of my background story. And one day I was at a conference, I don't know what conference it was at, and I was walking up the stairs, and some young gay, I can't say kid, in their 20s, caught up to me and said, I don't know anything about you. And I said, well, what do you want to know? And he said, well, I'm assuming, first of all, that you're a mom with gay kids, and you have, people that know me, you have a rich husband, and that's why you can go to all of these things. So, wrong on every count. I have 2 straight children, 36 and 39, and I have no husband, no rich husband, although I might be interested in a hiking husband, maybe 2 days a week. And that would be it. My mother asked me, she said, do you want to get married again? And I said, yeah, I'd like to have somebody, but maybe 3 days, maybe 1 night a week. So anybody up for putting in an application for that, I've got very strict standards. But I would rather teach. I usually throw up a timeline. Shout out to Matt if you're watching. It's not butcher paper. I'm a little bit beyond that. But they're going to digitize me soon. To help people understand the history of the LGBTQ people from when the scriptures were written until today, so that you can understand why LGBTQ plus people have been the target, most recently, of social and religious conservatives. But today, I'm going to be vulnerable, and I'm going to talk about how I came to be in your community. I'm probably one of the most accidental advocates you will ever see. There's no gay kids. There's not even a gay person in my extended family. I mean, how did that happen? No, they would come out to me. I mean, anybody would come out to me, but that's not how it's gone. So how did I get here? So in 2001, I was going through a divorce from my moderately financially set husband. And I was hiking every day. And I was hiking every day to find peace and to reconnect, and actually so I could talk out loud because I was in so much pain. And I had been told by my husband, actually I prefer the name husband, I don't like ex. I was told by my husband that he didn't want me talking about it because we had a small business, and it was a very successful small business, and people loved the concept of mom and pop. But mom and pop weren't doing very well. So I started hiking to find a time every day where I could get some peace. And so I did 2 things. We were also trying to patch back together a marriage. He had committed adultery. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do retribution adultery. So I decided to keep my mind busy, because it rolls, and my body busy. So I started hiking every day, and I started taking Italian at the community college. And at the community college, Tom Durante. So the very first night of class, he was paired up with me, and of course he was the only gay man in the class. And we had to become language partners, and because I had to interview him and introduce him to the class, at one point, while I was sipping my iced tea and interviewing him in the community college cafeteria, I said, "And your spouse, are you married?" He said, "Oh, my partner and I." I was like, "Partner? Like, that's code. Like, is this guy gay?" And I didn't know what to do with that because, as an evangelical Christian, everyone I knew was just like me. Wonderful, just like me. And so Tom started inviting me to all his parties because I was, I'm fun, and I didn't let out that I was shocked, and it was fun to hang out with him and all his gay friends. And then also in the same month, I ran into, the one that was just standing right here, Netto Montoya, and I met her on a local hiking trail. And there are easily 7 or 8 dozen hiking trails within very short drives or walks of Reno, and we ended up on the same trail. And she was mostly there on weekends, and I was trying to be there every day just to get respite. And one day, it was a Saturday. Netto mostly hiked on weekends. And it was a Saturday, and the husband had been particularly nasty and aggressive and yelling at me. And I finished my hike, and I didn't want to go home. So I saw this woman hiking up the trail, starting out on her hike, and I had seen her there several times before. And I just said to her, "Do you mind if I hike with you for a while? My name's Kathy. I've seen you here a lot, but I don't know who you are." And thus started a friendship. So she was the exact right person on the right trails at the right time in my life. And please get to meet her over the weekend, and you will understand with that cheerful attitude what attracted me to want to be in relationship with Netto. We would look forward to it, and we would chat from the moment we got out of our cars until the moment we got back in our cars. But our friends, our respective tribes, my evangelical Christian girlfriends, and her lesbians of a certain age girlfriends, because, her friends had come out at a different time in life, and the rules were different. Well, neither of our groups of friends were thrilled at our relationship. My friends didn't think that I was doing the right thing. They were hoping I was witnessing to all of these gay people. I wasn't. I was just witnessing. And I liked what I saw, but not enough to change teams. Not at all. And so, but our friends were very suspicious of what we were doing. My friends were trying to be nice like me, but her friends, for the longest time I didn't have a name. I was Netto's dog-walking friend or Netto's Christian friend. And I finally said to somebody at a party one night, I said, I actually have a name. My name is Kathy. So we were trying to navigate these friendships in the midst of people that were, this is 2001, 23 years ago. And it just wasn't happening like this. So, and every month I would have this thing called Girl Party. Oh, what a creative name. And so I was starting to blend together my lesbian friends and my straight evangelical friends. There were some evenings, Netto, weren't there, that were, tense. Yeah, there were tense evenings. And I thought I was doing great. I thought I was just being Miss Wonderful. I was getting people to get along. I was treating people well. But I still held on to some very exclusionary beliefs for years. And on March 8th, 2004, there was an article about Bishop Gene Robinson having just been installed as the New Hampshire Episcopal priest. Well, that was just a line too far for me. So I've been a New York Times subscriber, from the cradle, for a long time. And so when I read this article in the New York Times about it, I thought, okay, well and good. They can exist, they can believe in God if they want to, but they cannot be bishops. And they certainly can't lead church services. Now, can you imagine? I'm already 3 years into solid relationships with gay and lesbian people. I don't include trans at this time because I don't know. But back at that time, it was enough to know gay and lesbian people. So, and this is my buddy Ed's favorite story about me because it's so nasty. I got on the computer and I wrote the best letter to the New York Times. It was well formulated. I can write when I want to write, and this was a great letter. And I told the New York Times, and because I'm a Christian, and I told them, I can handle civil rights, I can handle all these things, but as soon as this man, Gene Robinson, said he was married, I knew he was having sex, like gay sex. So that's way too far. He shouldn't be behind a pulpit if he's having gay sex. So I wrote this letter. I'm so glad it never got published. Or people would be throwing it up and saying, see? But so several years later, at a Reformation Project, very small event at Gene Robinson's DC apartment for the board and some speakers, there were probably about 20 of us there. So I said to Gene Robinson, you caused so much strife in my life. And he said, well, get in line, sister. So he's a wonderful person. So the debate over LGBTQ rights and equality started heating up in 2004. The impetus was that Massachusetts had allowed same-sex marriage because being exclusionary was against their state's constitution. Then Governor Newsom, I'm pointing this way because that's the way from Reno, that way, allowed the city clerks to issue marriage licenses on February 12th till March 11th. And by then, 4,000 gay couples had gotten married. And one of my girl parties was during this time. And so the conversations were heated. And so with my gay friends and my Christian friends, everybody trying to be nice and not explode in my living room. So that was an interesting one. And then in August, the California Supreme Court nullified those marriages. And then states rushed to put some kind of wording in their state constitutions to eliminate gay people from getting married or protecting marriage as just one male and one female. So 11 states put it on their ballots that year to get people to the polls, and every one of them rejected any kind of affirmation of LGBTQ marriage. And it was also the year that Bush was against Kerry. And Netto and I, as we were hiking, she was trying to find out who I was. Now, I would have been honest, who I was voting for. And I told her who I was voting for. And obviously it was Bush. Obviously. And so she didn't really react to me, which was wonderful on her part. She didn't understand me, but I was still thinking that I had to vote with my faith. And my faith said to be exclusionary to LGBTQ relationships. So I was trying to navigate both worlds by being nice. Yeah, that doesn't work, just being nice. And gently applying pressure and giving information to my Christian friends. Now, this is a slow progression. This is a very slow progression. So after about 5 years of thinking each side didn't want anything to do with the other, it didn't matter. So gay people didn't want anything to do with the church, and the church didn't want anything to do with gay people. So I thought I'll just be nice to everybody, and there I am. There I can sit and be planted. But obviously, from conversations after especially some election periods, I was not displaying empathy to my gay friends. It was mostly some of the lesbians that were getting angry at me. There's some great stories behind it, but if I go in that tangent, I'll be there I can tell stories forever. But some of my lesbian friends did confront me and say, you basically don't understand. And one of them was Myra, the power lesbian of the state. And she sat me down and she schooled me, and I understood after she talked to me. So also around this time, it was a snowy morning, and my Times didn't get delivered in my driveway. So as I was getting ready in the morning in the bathroom, I had my laptop propped up in the mirror, two things at once. And I came across an article. So there was an article on the front page of the New York Times. And down here, it talked about, it said the word gay Christians. And I thought, gay Christians? So, I've been hanging out with gay people now for 5 years. And I never heard the term gay Christians. Never heard it. So I read the article, and because it was on my computer, I clicked on the website. I knew what I was going to see on that website. I knew what I was going to see on their mission statement, their statement of faith. I just knew it was all going to be about, okay, here we go again, gay sex. I knew it. I knew it. And I don't want that happening. You can be gay, kinda. But I read the statement of faith, and it said, one creator God, an incarnate Jesus, the Bible is Holy Scripture. Yeah, all good. Okay, where's the bad part? LGBTQ people are full participants in God's kingdom, unity in the body of Christ to serve God. All people deserve love and respect as brothers and sisters in Christ, despite personal convictions on sex and intimate relationships. And you know what I did? I almost couldn't breathe. I thought, wait a minute, I agree with this. This is a problem. I agree with this. So the very next Sunday, so this was December 12th, the very next Sunday I was in church, and that was the time when there were a lot of immigrant marches in states and cities, and my pastor was the only white pastor that marched with the immigrants. And so he came and he did a sermon that Sunday, and he was talking about it, and he didn't want to say immigrants because even that would make people leave the church, right? So, crazy. We're talking about a Christian church. So he was talking about the other. So he kept talking about the other. Everybody knew who he was talking about except Kathy. Kathy thought he was talking about LGBTQ people. And I sat in church and cried. I just kept crying. And then I walked up to him after the service, and he said, okay, something's obviously going on with you. And my response was, there are gay Christians. Okay, where did the migrants go? There are gay Christians. And he said, what do you want me to do about that? And I said, they're having a conference, because I read the website, and I scrolled through the website, and I noticed that they were having a conference in Seattle. 3 weeks after that, I just found out there were gay Christians, and now I think I'm going to go to a conference with them. So these are not rational ideas that most straight people with no gay children have, but I had it. And so I said to him, I want to go to this conference, and because I had no husband, no nothing, he's my spiritual covering. So I said, I'd like permission to go to this conference. And he said, it's really interesting. He said, Kathy, there's a voice crying in the wilderness, and I can't hear it, but I think you can. And what he was hoping that I was doing was what would be expected of people like me, that I would go and bring you back to being straight, and I would bring you back to God. Those were his hopes, but you were never straight, and you never left God. So I went back to that article, and I searched him out, and I called Justin Lee, the founder and head of GCN, Gay Christian Network. And I called him up and I said, can I come to your conference? I just want to see you. Just want to see. So silly. I want to see what you look like. So I went to my bosses and said, I was one of their top salespeople, so I had to put in my end-of-the-year projections, and I worked hard on it, and I got it done. And off I went on a plane to Seattle, and my church at the time paid for my registration and my hotel. And I'm sure to this day they are sorry they ever did that. Because I didn't do what was expected of me. So I went, and I was just determined to listen and to talk to people. And it was the third GCN conference. The first had been in Dallas, and the first had been in Florida. The second one was in Dallas. There were only 40 people. And this was Seattle, and there were about 200 people. And this was January 4th, 2007. And I just listened to people, and I asked people, can I join you for a meal? Can you tell me your story? And I'd love to go back and listen to the questions I asked people. So you know what they say, there's no dumb questions? I am positive that I asked stupid questions. But people around me for years were so gracious about allowing me to just ask anything that I wanted to. And I was going to come home, I didn't know it, and make some really irrational choices, risky, irrational choices. And they were risky because, well, they were just risky. I came home, and I came home on a Sunday night, and Tuesday night, I ended a 5-year relationship with a man because he had this disdain that he kept under a lid, he kept it controlled for gay people. And he would say things once in a while, but he was a very powerful man, and I'm a very powerful man in the government, in law enforcement, and he wasn't used to having someone push back on him. Well, here is I. And so he didn't say it much around me, but when he got around some of my friends, he would say, my straight friends, and my mother in particular, Kathy is hanging out with an awful lot of gay people. And he would say, Kathy, some people at the gym are starting to think you're a lesbian. I'd say, yeah, but you're my boyfriend. Like, can't you put a word in for me? That would be, you could do that. So came home on a Sunday night. Tuesday night, I ended a 5-year relationship because I felt so strongly at this conference. First night, worship. I felt so strongly that there was something here for me. No thought behind it. It was just something so strong within me that I knew I was supposed to be in this community and to do something, whatever that something is. So the next person that I came along was Ed Ness. And Ed Ness was part of a church in San Francisco called Freedom in Christ Church. And he determined that he was going to be my personal guide through these first few years. And he invited me to everything that Freedom in Christ Church did in San Francisco. And the bottom picture is me with Pastor Maria Caruana, who's the pastor of that church. And that group of people in San Francisco could not have been kinder to me and more inclusive of me. And the other person is Pastor Denise Cordova, a UCC pastor in Reno, Nevada. And all of these people somehow let me into their lives and trusted me, but mostly they guided me. They just invited me to everything. I've got a great funny story about Denise Cordova. Buy me something at the bar and I'll tell you. So I'll tell you anyway. But I started digging into scriptures, and that was January of 2008. And this was now 7 years after meeting Netto. 7 years after hanging out with Netto and Tom and all their friends, I finally started looking at what the scripture said. So I worked for a company that closed down between Christmas and New Year's. Nobody was doing sales then. So they gave us the week off, and I live in Reno, Nevada, in the mountains. There's a lot of snow. And that particular week, there was a lot of snow. And so every day I decided that I was going to figure out what the Bible said about this. But this is now, so it's 2008. There is not much information out there. So I had to rely on my concordance and my Bible and some history. I just had to try to figure this thing out. So each day, I took one of the verses that are called the clobber verses, and each day I did one of those verses, and I would stop by about 2 o'clock, and I would put my snowshoes on. Not the typical study process, but, it works for me. And I would snowshoe around the neighborhood, and I would think, this makes sense. This is not about gay people at all. And invariably, each day, I would start out my snowshoeing excursions around my neighborhood crying, because I knew the scriptures were being abused. I knew that. And I knew that just because now I was 6-7 years into hearing stories, and now intently watching how the church was treating gay Christians that I now knew existed, and I was looking at the Bible for myself. So I started putting in more effort. For one more year, I just started going to events. I went to my employers in about 2010, and I said, I need to quit my job. Who does that? What single woman with a mortgage does that? I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to start a nonprofit? Like, to do what? I'm not sure. But I know something needs to be done. So in 2011, I started Canyonwalker Connections. And I didn't know what I was going to do, and I knew it was risky, but I felt like it was right. And I just started showing up to things. Like, that's my first, I stamped it. You can't tell, but I took a sponge stamper and I just hurt by church, get a straight apology here, and I went to San Francisco Pride. That was early to be doing this stuff. That was really early to be doing this stuff. And I would go to Charlotte Pride. I just started going to Pride events. I had no, I didn't do a 5-year plan. I just kind of showed up. I started going to conferences, some that you probably don't know, smaller conferences, the Alliance of Christian Churches. I was going to Gay Christian Network, the Evangelical Network, which folded into this. Evangelical Concerned, which folded into this. San Francisco Pride, other Pride events. And I just kept going to them and showing up and gathering people around me to stand around the street protesters. So that one, this one here, that's Flip Benham. He's the granddaddy of all of them, and he said to me one year, he said, Kathy, you are so talented. Oh, duh. And he said, you are so talented, and you obviously have a real zeal for God. When are you going to use your gifts for God's glory? And he said, one of these years, Kathy, you're going to understand what you're doing is wrong, and you're going to start, living your life for God. Okay, Flip, thanks a lot, got it. And so, this is another story I love. So this is Lisa Salazar, who's on my board, lives in Vancouver. Michael Brown, anybody know him? Michael Brown? You're supposed to hiss. No, you're not. Don't hiss. Yes, no, don't hiss. He's stationed in Charlotte area, and he put an ad on his webpage and on his radio show, and he was asking for 500 marchers, dancers, praisers, and prayers to go into Charlotte Pride, march into Charlotte Pride with God Has a Better Way t-shirts on, and wristbands and water bottles that all said God Has a Better Way, which all pointed to conversion therapies, Exodus. And so Exodus hadn't closed yet. So Exodus and some of their affiliates. And I saw that and I thought, there's got to be some Christian voice on the other side of that. So I posted on his page and I said, I would love to be there to greet you. So he kind of taunted and he said, yes, whatever. And so I said, I'm going to go. So Lisa was going to be with me that week from Vancouver. And I said, Lisa, if I can raise the money because I didn't have any. Would you go to Charlotte with me? Would you extend your trip and go to Charlotte with me so that we can stand against the street preachers? Oh, here's some more logical choices. And so she said, sure. So we went to Charlotte, and, first of all, I put a plea on Facebook to say, if I can raise the money, we'll go. And I was so sure I would fail, I didn't want to watch myself fail, so I loaded up my kayak, and I left my phone home, and I went kayaking for the afternoon because I didn't want to watch the money not come in. And when I came home about 4 hours later, I had all the money I needed and a place to stay. So we went to Charlotte, and this person here, back, not there. I don't want to get to that punchline. This person here is my daughter, Sam. And she went that year, as did my mother, because my brother lives just north of there. So Sam knew who Michael Brown was. This was the following year. And so Sam says, okay, Mom, I'll go. So Sam runs up the street, and Michael Brown is walking this way, and Sam's walking this way, and she just walks up to him, and she says, sticker? Because it was gay plus Christian equals okay, and then my website. And he said to her, oh, I'll take a sticker, but do you know who this person is? You look like a nice young woman. You may not know what the person, Kathy, that represents this organization, is doing. And you should be warned about her. Like, how well do you know her? And Sam said, oh, she's my mother. So then all of a sudden, oh, she talks so well about you. So also, the other person in this is my mom. That's Buttercup. That's Roberta. She rolled out the stickers that we were giving out. She died this year, and she hospiced at my home. And I was able to give her great end-of-life care, and I adore her and miss her, but I want to tell you a story about her, about how much she loves me and how much she loved you. So in November of 2013, my closest friends, combining 67 years of friendship, decided they didn't want to be my friend anymore because they were, lesbian adjacent, because I was hanging out with lesbians. So 2 of them were going through divorces, and there was a suspicion that we were just, 3 lesbians hanging out in the churches, and that was too much discussion for them. So they, over a very minor issue, walked out of my life. I'd been having breakfast with them every Friday morning for decades. And it was a hard time. So I was writing a book at the time, and I decided to go down to my mom's house for the month and spend Thanksgiving to Christmas with her. And she was taking a nap, and I brought my bills with me. I should have burned them, but I brought them with me, and I couldn't pay my bills. I just couldn't do it. So the book was taking longer than I thought it should. I thought you could finish a book in 2 years. Well, I thought I could finish it. I can't. And so she went down to take a nap, and I was in the kitchen, and I was crying over my bills. I probably should have been praying over my bills, but I was crying over my bills. And my mom got up from her nap, and she came out, and she said, what's wrong? And I said to her, Mom, she always worries about me. I said, I'm going to just tell you the truth. I can't pay my bills. And I'm trying to figure out which bills to pay. So then I went out for a walk, and I came back, and my mom said, I've decided to pay your mortgage until you get this damn book out. So I worked another year on the damn book, and she paid my mortgage, and I published Walking the Bridgeless Canyon in October 2014. And until payments start coming in, she paid my mortgage until December. And so she paid my mortgage in December, and then I was driving home on Christmas Day to keep my obligation for a dog-watching gig. And she called me the next day, and she could hardly breathe. She was, it's like, what's going on, old lady? And she said, Kathy, where'd it go? Back, there. She said, I just got an Arizona scratchy ticket, and I think I won. I said, how much did you win, Mom? She said, I think I won $50,000. Buttercup won $50,000 after a year of paying my mortgage, and the first thing she said after that was, and I know why I won. And so I have always figured that if God can speak through a donkey, he could speak through a lottery ticket. So I'm sticking with it, right? So we went on a cruise to Alaska because she had always wanted to go. I didn't just take her money. We actually did something. Although, you know what? She's just, people that know her, she's a wonderful person. So I got the book out. It's a good book. It's a good book. And that's Canyonwalker Connections, I'm online, yada, yada, yada. So I would go along and I would do my teaching, and my pastor warned me that it was very uncomfortable to have me in the congregation because I was also doing public actions against Franklin Graham when he came to town for his prayer rally, against other pastors in town that were doing apologies to the LGBTQ community, and they weren't. And I was writing about them, and I was getting a lot of attention. And some of the other pastors in town were calling my pastor and saying, "Can't you rein her in? Spend 10 minutes with me." I don't get reined in. You know, as a 60-year-old woman, I don't get reined in. So I was becoming problematic. And my church was having a problem with me. I found out for 2 years they left me off the membership list. It was a covenant church. Like, I'd signed a covenant. I thought it was agreeable to both of us, but I was signed off. So I found a new church, and I started to help another evangelical church become affirming. The Rock Church in Sparks, Nevada, thank you, thank you, thank you for everything you've done for me and allowed me to be within community and to be exactly who I am. So I just kept teaching, and then I became obsessive about a subject. And so I started becoming obsessive about reviewing books, anti-gay books, not like Barbara Streisand's latest book, which is very good. And but I'm a book reader, and so the pictures on the right are, that's all the books I've read and reviewed, and they're all kind of modern. And this is the current stack of 17 books that I've yet to review, because 17 in the last 2 years have come out. And Danny, thank you, Danny gave me an idea last night. He said, "When are you going to put all of those reviews in one book and publish it?" I thought, oh, that is a great idea. I could probably actually write their books. I could ghostwrite their books, because I know this lack of theology so well. And don't be tricked that it's getting better. The rhetoric in these books is actually getting worse and actually getting sloppier. So we're moving backwards a little bit. But thank goodness, there are some bright spots, and one of the biggest changes and challenges to the standards that I've seen is the parents entering this conversation. So I want to say something about the mama bears, and we've got a few, right? I guess I get to be an honorary one because, no gay kids, but oh well. They started showing up in the Portland QCF, GCN in 2015, and when I walked down that escalator and I saw this room full of parents, and Danny, you were there that year too, and Abby, I was coming down the escalator and I started to cry. I thought, well, the first thing I thought is, they finally showed up. And I thought, once these people show up, they are like the secret weapon that the church never thought would happen. Because they are in every denomination, they are in every influential church, and they are powerful and passionate and driven, and they are going to change things. So I am so dedicated to educating the mama bears. They know that. Liz and Sarah, you know that. So I'm going to skip some of what the Bible is about, because I see I'm running out of time. So my specialty, I can just tell you that all the verses that are used against gay people, they are basically about love God, don't seek other gods, don't participate in idolatry. So don't worship, don't go to the cult of Isis and worship there. So if you're doing that, probably stop. And if you're abusing your enslaved people and using them for sex, probably stop. That's not a good idea. And don't use other people for your own pleasure and in power. That's what the verses are about. So, but when I get to 1 Corinthians 6:9 through 10, which is the first verse in the Bible that's been used that had the word homosexual in it, I would always teach that wasn't put in the Bible till 1946 in the Revised Standard Version of the Bible. And I knew the team was born between 1870 and 1917. So what could they have known about homosexuality or homosexuals? Not much. So I believed that the translation was ideological and cultural. And I would teach this when I taught my timelines on butcher paper, my 25-foot timelines over, I do 6 and 8 hour presentations. They're pretty good. And so, if you get to go to one, come to one. I mean, come, like not go, come. And so I would teach this, and one day I was teaching in LA, and my buddy Ed, where's my buddy Ed? Oh, there you are, Ed. He came to one of my seminars, and he thought, isn't this interesting? And he decided he was going to go out and start investing in old Bibles, as one does. Everybody has 1,500 Bibles, 1,500 Bibles in their Bible collection. No, nobody does. Ed does. And so he came to one of my seminars, and he talked to me about the collection he had been gathering, and I went to his house, and I thought, the first thing, he wanted to talk to me about them, and I really just said, I think I even said, just give me a bottle of wine and a glass and go away. And no, he didn't want to leave his Bibles with me with a bottle of wine and glass. So we became friends. And he became one of the people whose phone calls I answered. And he found out that the archives for the RSV translation were at Yale University. So we ended up going to Yale University and digging into the archives. And you have an opportunity, I won't go into it, you have an opportunity this afternoon to see 1946, the documentary. So very much dependent on my buddy Ed, every single man's heartthrob. And then, of course, Tina, who found Reverend David, and Reverend David, who died about this time last year, and then Rocky, who did the production of this. So please take an opportunity to see the movie. And the difference with the RSV is that translation changed a behavior, an excessive, oppressive, dominant behavior that, as far as I'm concerned, even heterosexual men can do, into a group of people, homosexuals. So please come and go to the movie this afternoon. And I'm also going to do a podcast with Mason, 12 or 12:30 or something like that. So in the next few years, I just go into things. And my closest friends have come out of this community. These are the people that I trust most in my life. These are my closest friends, my dearest friends, and they are all in the LGBTQ community. And I'm very appreciative of it. So first, would you like to first meet Netto? Hey, can I have, please, I'm going to beg somebody for 5 minutes after Netto. Can I have him? Say yes? Yeah, thank you. Netto, come on up.
Because it's not part of I can't even understand it. And Kathy keeps saying, people really want to meet you. And I go, I'm just me. But she says, you were the one. And 30 years of teaching physical education in the Reno Sparks area, I thought that was my legacy to all my, stinkers that were middle schoolers and high schoolers, to teach them to move and to enjoy movement. And then here we go. I met this lady on a hiking trail. Who would have thought? And at the time I go, yes, somebody else to play with. I'm just like, wow, somebody that enjoys the same things I do. But it was interesting in the fact that we came from so many different worlds, and we were so naive. Good word, naive. Because I thought, I didn't care if she slept around with men, It didn't bother me in the least. But, I just thought a new playmate, somebody else to do something with. And all I want to say is that I thought for sure that teaching was my passion, and it still is. Thank you, pickleball. But, but what's so interesting to me, and we could tell you stories upon stories about when I met Kathy, she was going through a divorce, the people, the three women that, 25 years of friendship, poof, they're gone because they didn't like what she was doing. And of course, the fact that I'm so good looking, that we were partners. No, there's no way, Not only that, but she can't throw a good softball. She can't throw.
I can't. Yeah.
So, what I want to say to you is this. It only takes one person. It only takes one person. And it explodes. There's a book, there's another book, there's a documentary. But what happened to us was this: love, kindness, and exclusion. It all happens because of relationships. And one of the things at the end, you got to listen to the very end of the movie, of the documentary, okay? Promise you'll stay after the credits, because I'm the last one.
Whatever.
And one of the things I said was this: love God. Oh, help me with this. The second was love yourself. That's a tough one. And do relationships.
Yeah. Thanks, honey
Thank
bunch.
you, Kathy. I love you.
I love you too, even though I'm not your type. I'm somebody's type. So this is the wrap up. What have I learned? Oh, we're a lovely couple. I've learned that I was a very dogmatic Christian. I believed what I was told, and I didn't research it myself. It made me very human. Very narrow, and it didn't make me a good parent or a good human, and I'm trying to repair all those past pieces. I also know that what I'm doing is right. You hear that phrase, the joy of the Lord? I absolutely know the joy of the Lord. There's only been a couple of times that I've struggled in the last few years, am I doing the right thing? But overwhelmingly, I know I'm doing the right thing. Know who and when to engage. Don't waste your energy. If people don't respect your humanity for you being LGBTQ, move on. Some will, some won't, so what next? Just tell your stories. Tell your stories, because that's what convinced me. Relationship and telling stories and doing life with people, and not, oh yeah, I have a gay hairdresser. I have a lesbian barista. That's not relationship. Do dinners with people. Go to their family events. Those relationships will give you the desire to figure out beyond that. And the last piece is be kind. I don't think that Netto and I would have forged that relationship if we weren't kind to one another. And I put that up just because it's pretty. This is where I get to live, right? So I get to live here, and this is what I want to wrap up. But that's not where I'm from. This is where I'm from. When I was 2, my mother got divorced. And this was I was born in 56, so this is in the early 60s, and we lived in a very heavily Irish Catholic community, and my mother was excommunicated. My father was the one that had an affair. My father walked out on us, and my mother raised us. So I should have gone to this church, St. Jude's, but they wouldn't accept me because my mother was divorced. One of my brothers was already in there, and they didn't kick him out. Oh, that's the love of Jesus. But this church, which was 13 blocks from my house, Good Shepherd, accepted me. And so that's Good Shepherd too. So I went to school there, and I was the only girl in my school with no father in the early 60s. So I knew something was wrong with me. I knew I had this deep sense of hiding shame that something was wrong with me. I knew that. I just knew it. Every day when I would walk home, on the way home, I would stop there on the way to my Nana's house. My mother was working, so I would stop there, which was PS 98, and it had a public library. And the first time I walked in there and I started reading picture books, I was 7. I had never even seen my name written. I couldn't read or write at all at 7. Boy, things have changed in 60 years. And the librarian there said, "Honey, can you read?" And she started teaching me to read. So there was a librarian at a public library that started helping me to read. But I think I've always had a sensitivity to injustice because of my mother being excommunicated. So I care about people that are not like me, and almost everybody is not like me. So these are the people we should care about. And I believe, honestly, in Micah 6:7. Do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. And I care about the basic tenets of Jesus to do justice, fair treatment, inclusion, and equal access to God. And I care about people, bringing people along individually and congregationally and denominationally even. So I just want to encourage you to use your voice for other people. Even you LGBTQ people, there are other kinds of people on the margins, unhoused people, people voting rights that are being taken away, reading access programs, immigrants, there's all kinds of other things. Use your voice for those on the marginalized. But for me, I've been so grateful to the people in this community that have allowed me to come into this community, into the LGBT community, and educate me. I've been so fortunate to have scholars and pastors in the LGBT community, and you people, be my friends and educate me and listen to me. I've attended 17 of these last 20 conferences, 2 online and 15 in person. This organization has been essential to my growth. In the beginning, Justin Lee and his hospitality, and he is gifted with hospitality. He was so good to me in those first few years, not making me feel like an odd person and being so welcoming. And I've served on boards of other organizations. I've had a front row seat for the last 15 years and watched this. And I hope for groups of people to revisit beliefs that have done harm, reclaim scriptures intended for the work of justice and equal treatment, renewal of faith and action for each of us, a rebirth for those who seek to find grace and mercy, and you changed me. You changed my life. You made me a better person, and you made me a better Christian. That's another pretty picture. I live in pretty places. But from the absolute bottom of my heart, I am so grateful for what the LGBT community has done for me and my faith and who I am, because I am complete. My pastor, he would be, dismayed. But I am so grateful to all of you for the place that you have saved for me and included me in your community, and thank you so much for what you've done to my life. Thank you.